And joining us now to sum up this campaign for the European Parliament is our guest, Melchior Szczepanik from the Polish Institute of International Affairs. Sir, a pleasure to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. All right, I wonder if you could...
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I wonder if you could sum up a little bit what you think of this campaign to the European Parliament and how it differed from the national campaign that we saw at the end of last year.
Well, I believe it was a very interesting campaign. If I may, I will perhaps focus on the European dimension of this campaign. I think if we look back five years and look at the previous European election and compare it to the current campaign, I believe that the European-wide problems were more present in discussions, in national debates. And it's first and foremost because of the international circumstances. So there are, of course, Russia's war in Ukraine was widely debated, and the consequences of this war for the EU and for the global role of the EU were widely debated. So I would say the international situation, of course, impacted on the campaign and on what EU politicians had to focus. Then economy played a very important part too. The EU faced some economic challenges recently, inflation, and first and foremost inflation. And also European politicians have to think about how to reconcile making the EU more competitive and also making the economy more sustainable and more environment and climate friendly. Another topic which featured in debates was migration and the consequences of migration. And here the EU also has a few things to reconcile. The EU wants to protect its borders and control illegal migration, but at the same time, it wants to help people who need international protection according to EU international responsibilities. So, and perhaps one more thing, what the politicians debated during the campaign was also the future of the institutional setup of the EU and how it should be organized in the future. So there are also different views on that, whether we should aim for closer cooperation and consequently adjust the institutional setup and the decision-making procedures in the EU.
Right. What about here on the domestic front? Law and Justice and Civil Coalition are going neck and neck. So I wonder what could decide the outcome of this vote and if there's anything we should pay attention in particular.
Well, I believe that the turnout will be a very important issue. And if we look at the campaign in Poland, I guess what the leaders focus on is to convince their supporters to go out and vote. What we know is that the turnout will definitely be smaller than in national elections, because still the vast majority of citizens consider European elections less important. But the parties want to mobilize their voters, and before usually the voters who support European integration and who have a positive view of the EU were more willing to go out and vote. So, for example, the turnout was higher in large cities where the support for the EU is larger. But this may change. So I guess the key factor will be turnout.
Right. What about some of these scandals that we were discussing today? Do you think that they have or had an impact on, or will have an impact on the vote?
Well, if we look at the campaign, there were some problems that were perhaps specific to national politics that didn't really pertain to EU politics. And on this, I'd rather not comment because as a civil servant, I'm not allowed and I'm not willing to comment on national politics. Definitely, I think they played some role. So the debate in Poland was not only limited to European, to international problems. Of course, some issues related to national politics and to what happened in recent years were debated as well, and they will play a role. But I guess what is important is to emphasize that the debate was not limited to Polish politics, so that global issues featured as well, and it is important for the citizens to understand that that Polish representatives have a say and they can influence the EU position on a wide variety of issues.
Right, so let's take a look at the broader picture now, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was wondering, let's say I'm a voter who spends a lot of time at work and doesn't really have that much time to pay attention to politics or the intricacies of these politics. It seems to me like lately most of the parties agree on a lot of things, particularly migration and European security. It seems that they've agreed on this. So as a voter, if I'm looking at the parties, let's say the two main ones, and then perhaps the left and Confederacja, what am I really looking at? What am I choosing? How are they differentiating themselves? Is it more of a Eurosceptic towards Euro-federalist, or how is just a regular voter to look at these elections?
Well, I believe that an average voter has quite a lot of choice in Poland. You have 5 big political parties that that could be placed on the spectrum from left to right. So there is a selection, and if we try to look a bit closer at the debates, I think their views on the future of Europe and on the key challenges for the EU are quite different. So first and foremost, the ruling coalition emphasizes that cooperation is important, is valuable, and due to the character of the challenges that are global, that are international, the only way to tackle them is through cooperation with partners on EU level. While the opposition tends to underline that cooperation is not always very effective, and some issues could be better dealt with on national level. So that we have to take a closer look at the competences of the EU and perhaps renationalize certain competences. And when it comes to the decision-making procedures, those who favor more integration also tend to agree with the fact that it is difficult to make decisions unanimously. That it takes quite a lot of time, and that the EU can be blocked if member states allow one country to block decisions. Whereas opposition argues that the character of international cooperation is such that countries have to make decisions unanimously. So I think there are quite substantial differences between political parties in Poland, and this is all in all. I think this is good because this offers a true choice to the voters.
Right. So, and what would you say to people who state that the radical right is on the rise, and we'll see more of such MEPs in the European Parliament?
So we've already seen the exit polls coming out of the Netherlands. It looks like Geert Wilders' party, well, maybe not winning, but getting a huge chunk of the vote.
Yes, we'll find out on Sunday. But yeah, they're definitely one of the top performers, so to speak, right?
Yes, well, definitely. If we look at the public opinion polls that were carried out before the election, it's clear that parties, that right-wing nationalist parties that are generally characterized as Eurosceptic, that criticize the current state of in which the EU finds itself, they will definitely be stronger in the new European Parliament. At the moment, they represent some 18-20% of members of parliaments. They could perhaps represent some 25% after the election, but still, this does not give them. This is not enough for them to make a decisive impact on EU decisions. So the decisions of the European Parliament and subsequently EU decisions will be shaped by a centrist coalition, by pro-integration forces from the center left to the center right.
Melchior Szczepanik, thank you, sir, for being with us this afternoon and for your insights.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Sir, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.